perspective. So, as I started recognizing, because last time we went through our fears, our stresses, so as I started to recognize the things that I feared, it actually helped me to move forward on my personal journey. I started realizing that it was okay. I could do this. That wasn't going to really happen. All these thoughts of my family's going to hate me, he's going to leave me, things aren't going to work out because I'm different, started to get better, and I began to work through those fears. The interesting thing is, as I worked through them, I found a whole new emotion that I had actually never experienced before. And I hadn't realized how far down I pushed that, but I got mad. I was actually angry. And that's an emotion that I had really never experienced before, because I went out of my way to make sure everything was fine. And I'm sure it was there, but I just pushed it down so far. I never really felt it to where I would recognize what it was, because I started getting mad at everybody. Why can't I be who I want to be? Why can't I do? What's wrong with me going out and doing these things I enjoy doing? Why are you guys so upset with me? And I got mad at them because and I don't like the way that felt at all. But I started to go through and I started thinking, you're stopping me from being what I want to be. I can't move forwards now because of what you guys are saying, what you guys are doing. You won't let me. My kids, they're saying things like, well, why can't you just be a massage therapist? We know what that is. That's normal. And they're coming around with all of these different thought patterns and almost like putting me, well, they did put me on a defensive. It's why can't I just be this person? Why won't you let me be this person? So I was reacting to the words that they were saying, and I was not happy with it. I didn't see me as a problem at all. The problem was out there. It was always out there because they're stopping me. They're getting mad at me for trying. It's out there. None of it was never inside of me. So I started, fighting with Brad a lot. I would get really defensive over almost anything he said because, I'm 50 years old. I'm pretty old enough to do what I want now. I don't have to do all of this stuff anymore. I become defensive. He reacts to my defensiveness. Pretty soon, it's a bad situation. I kept thinking, if he didn't ask me about stuff, we would quit fighting. So the fighting wasn't my problem. Again, it's out there. I'm innocent, right? So I'm the victim. They're all picking on me. It's nothing. Can't I have my own opinions? Can't I just be all this? I don't understand why he's upset. It took me a long time to start working through this and understanding it.
Could we stay on this slide for a few minutes?
We can.
Because it just reminds me it's not as close as a spouse, but someone I thought was a good friend. She's always amazed by the things that I'm doing and studying. It just blows her mind. And because she perceives me as Middle America, and then I do these other things. So I think, she thinks I'm some kind of a funny specimen to look at in a microscope. I don't know. But so we're out to lunch, and what are you into now? And I'm taking Reiki lessons. And then I mentioned it before, I got this lecture on, don't let it brainwash you, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and I went immediately angry. But also, maybe I had a preconceived idea. Isn't a friend, a real friend, someone you can say anything to, and they may not agree, but they're not going to go, did I have an unreasonable expectation of her? She knows I'm on the far side anyway, so why did she all of a sudden wig out when I said, I'm studying Reiki, I find it has helped me immensely, health-wise, etc., etc. So, I guess I'm curious about it. I've thought about that several times. I don't trust her anymore. When she says, what are you up to now? Oh, I'm reading a few good books.
And just letting it go at that.
I don't trust her anymore.
See, now I've been through that because I did that with Brad too. I quit telling him a lot of things because I quit telling my kids a lot of things too. Matter of fact, first time you learn about a lot of things is when you read a book I have.
not close family.
No, not the best way, but at least I was in San Diego at the time and he was here.
Nice
So,
phone calls.
yeah. But part of that, we're gonna actually work into, because when they react like that, and it's really hard, and it's a whole process to come through, but you have to eventually come to the realization that it's not you, it's their problem. It's them, and it really has nothing to do with you personally. It comes with, which we're gonna kind of look at that a little bit different, but seeing things from a different perspective.
I'll add that I have been the person on both sides. And I think that your friend, I was your friend at one point in my life, not that long ago. And I think that many of us, at maybe long stretches of our lives, look to define ourselves by the people that are around us. And if they're into something or believe something that we can't reconcile, you panic. You want them to be accepted in your, because I had a friend that I was the same way too. She was always out there, and I was always trying to pull her in. If you just keep that stuff kind of under wraps a little bit, yeah, then you won't have so many problems out there.
Yeah, but that's a control issue with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I'm saying, is that it's all a control issue. I mean, just like for my husband, when I started, for me, it was like, okay, everything that I'm trying to control around me wasn't working. It wasn't, I couldn't reconcile it for myself. So that's when I started looking out and realized that I needed to have a more open mind just so that life was easier for me, because I could learn a lot of other avenues that I just closed down all the time. But they made more sense when I started opening up. Kyle, my husband, was the same kind of freaked out that I was with my friend, because he worried about, just like your husband, what are they going to think? I mean, people expect a certain Marina, and now they're going to have to deal with this other one, and it's a reflection on me too. You are my wife, so you're not going to flip out on me.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's not you, it's the other person. It was me. But there's a amount of growing that you have to do, and that person will have to do, just like I did, to get by that. And you have to make a decision whether or not you want to be around her. My girlfriend didn't want to be around me. We are now back being very close, because I apologized, and she can recognize that you have to let people be who they are. You can't keep them all tidy and neat in your world. And that's what we did.
And it is definitely a process. Of going clear through the whole thing. It's a huge, huge process, and it takes time. You can't push it, so we'll get actually further on to what I want. He didn't understand my opinions, even though he knew I was open-minded. He didn't know how open-minded I was, because I had never really came out and said, because again, didn't want to rock any boats, wanted to stay quiet. So over all of this time since high school, we've had set up something that kind of worked. He did what he wanted to do, and I said, oh, that's great, I like it too, whether I did or not. It's a pattern that would develop over several years, not that just happened yesterday. And so, but it was one that didn't work for me anymore. And that's whenever I started to get really upset, because people didn't let me be who I wanted to be. For me, it seemed like it took me 30-some years to get back to this. For them, I had to realize it seemed like it was overnight, because that I had always been so quiet and so complacent and so fine. And now all of a sudden, they're like, I don't know who I married. Well, I'm the same person all the time. This is just, I'm showing you who I really am, instead of coming along and, keeping things So a lot of it is changing our perception and seeing how we do things. And that's going from being more or less the victim or the blaming. It's all the same thing. If it's their fault because they're coming at you, it's their fault. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you want to lose weight and you're not losing weight, and you have your friends say, oh, that's okay, here, just have one of these. Well, it's their fault. If they would keep giving me all this stuff, I would be fine, right? If I want to start a new job, I really think I can go out and I can start this business on my own, but you have all these people around here that say, oh, that'll never work. Are you crazy? What are you thinking of? All these naysayers? Well, it's their fault. They're keeping me back from being what I really want to do. It's really easy to fall into that type of a situation, to look at everything out there and nothing in here at all. And that's where I was at that point. I was looking out there and not so much in here. It makes a difference. And that's when I came across this simple little universal law of free will. It made all the difference in the world once I totally understood how free will works. Okay, the one thing I learned right off the get-go is you cannot change anybody else in this entire world. The only person you can ever change is yourself. That's it. You don't give advice to adults unless they specifically request of you. Everyone has their own journey, their own path, their own way to go. You respect that because it's their journey, their path, their way to go. What you do is you can change yourself. As you change yourself, those around you will also begin to change. So it was really hard to step back and start to realize that I need to let them find their own way. It really had nothing to do with me. The only one that I could change was me. And I had to start changing the way I did things. I needed to quit being mad at them, for starters, for being who they were, and for not understanding what I'm doing. I can't sit there and be mad at them anymore. So I need to really change everything that I did. I started by doing breathing techniques a lot. I would stop, I would breathe, I would de-stress, I would start to work my way through, and instead of reacting to a situation. There's a difference between reacting and responding, and we're going to get into that. I had to learn how to respond because I spent most of my life reacting. That never works, ever. So we started to go through there. So somebody would say something, I would take a moment, do some deep breathing, actually think about what he just said, and then formulate an answer from there. How many times when we're actually dealing with people are we just talking away and we're not even listening to what they're saying? We're already thinking about what we're going to tell them back in our head before we ever, while they're still talking. So we're jumped clear ahead of them. We're still not listening. So another part of this is learning how to really listen to the other person. How to learn how to step outside of you and come from a whole different place. And that's I have discovered for dealing with the world, for me, is coming at it from a whole different space than the one that I've been dealing with for all the other time. I had to learn to respond. And I began to actually listen, and very respectfully, I would tell him my opinion if it was different. I understand 100% where you're coming from, and I understand what you're saying. It's just in this point, I don't agree with you. But that's nothing against you. I totally value your opinion as well. So it came to how I started talking and answering back. And there were other times when we would be talking and he'd just get very sad. Well, I'm not fighting with you. I'm actually saying the same thing you're saying. Oh, okay, yeah, you are. And it was over. But it's a learning process. I had to start by changing me. That's the only, and again, that is the only thing you have control over in this entire world is yourself. The rest of it is how you deal with the rest of it.
I do think that as you change, that you recognize some of it was the influence that I had from my family. That we're all subject to the beliefs of our family and how deep rooted those beliefs are, and your environment. And you have, so when you get, for me, when I got to that point where I realized that I didn't come up with all this, with my belief system on my own, I realized I needed to create my own belief system. And so because of all of that influence, I have compassion for other people because I know that that's where they're coming from too. And they just might not be there yet. But there does come a point in time where somebody else's belief system, regardless if it's your parents or your brothers and sisters or whoever it is that was a mentor for you growing up, if it doesn't sit, it's like it almost gets to a point where it just doesn't work, and that's when you start researching it. But I do have a lot of compassion for people, which makes you not want to react anymore.
Right, because you understand where they're coming from.
Because you can't get past it, even with the reaction. They're not gonna hear you because they're not there. They're still using that belief system, which is very rigid.
Very black and white.
Yes.
And there's a lot, and this is just a little side note, but a lot of people can't give you an inch on what you're saying that maybe that might be correct. Because if they accept one little thing, their entire house of cards will crumble underneath them. And that's really hard and it's very, very scary for a lot of people to do that. As a matter of fact, that's Brad, it's just been very recently that he is now very open, and I mean, he's going to go see Adam for crying out loud. But it's been years, not months, it's been years to get to this point, to where he's like, okay, I can do this, I can accept this, we can go forwards. It came from changing me, and not from anyone else. So the universal law of free will is huge, and everything follows that law of free will. You know, if you have children under 18, it's your responsibility to protect them. That's different. You guide them, you protect them. But once we come into the adult world, we have to learn that the only one that you can change is yourself. You can't go around blaming your parents forever. You can't go around saying, you know, my pastor did this. You can't go around saying society did this. Sooner or later, the only way you're going to move forward is to really be able to start looking inside and changing you, because that's the only way that's going to work. So once I started doing that, we actually as a couple started healing and started to move forward. It made a huge difference. So again, you all have your own personal path to follow, every single one of you. We're never going to go. We might end up in the same place, but we're going to get there totally different. So we all have our trials, we all have our tribulations, we all have our ways to go. We may have the main path, but we might have all these little side tours we're going to take before we get there. That usually brings you back to the main path. Some of the side tours are really long, and you go through your own bumps and your own bruises. I always looked at each one of them, though, as a learning experience. I used to say I made a lot of mistakes. I've never made a mistake in my life. Every one of them now has been learned. It was a learning experience, and it's taught me and it helped me to move forward. So, you know, my path was to heal my marriage, to get it back the way it was, to be able to do the work that I do and do it with blessings of those in my family now. Whether they understand it or not, because they'll right up front say they still don't understand it, but they believe in it and they know it works because they've seen enough and they know it makes me happy and they're fine. They're like, okay, we're fine with that now. But it was a whole journey to come through. So again, your own journey, wherever it's taking you, wherever you have to work your way through the blame game and victimization and saying, but I can't deal with these people because this is what they do. You have to be able to work your way through that in order to continue to move forwards. whether it's looking for a new job, losing weight, getting along with your spouse, whatever, finding your passion, you have to be able to let things go and to move forward. So it's not out there that needs to change. And that's the hardest part for most people, when they realize it's not out there, it's in here. Where you have to change is inside. You cannot get it from the outside. You can get support from the outside as you work your way through, but ultimately the one who has to change is you. And that's where it begins. So it's how you changed, how you view the world, and how you move through the world. That's what brings your lasting change, and it gets you coming. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to learn how to walk a mile in their shoes as well as your own. So we're going to learn this. We're going to learn to be an observer. That's the best way to really start forward and to really understand what's going on. Again, like I said, a lot of times in an argument, or even talking to another person, not even in an argument, we're so busy thinking about our response, we never hear what they're actually saying.
Preparing our
Right,
response.
we're preparing, just like we're like, defending. This is what I'm gonna say next, and it blows on through. It's even worse than sitting with the technology. I mean, we're just flying through everything. So, number one, be honest with yourself, always. We've talked with that with mirror work, with everything else. If you cannot be honest with yourself, how are you gonna be honest with anybody? You have to be able to really look at yourself and be honest. And I'm gonna tell you, that sucks too, because there's a lot of times I would looking back and going over a situation, and I could see my part in it. Could see where I could have done things a little differently, and they would have turned out completely different than what they did. So if you can't trust yourself to tell yourself the truth, you can't trust anybody. And the hardest thing most people have is being truthful with themselves. It is a whole lot easier to look outside of yourself and say it's his fault. And it's his fault, her fault. That's so much easier than saying I might have screwed up and done something wrong myself. So let's put it in a different perspective. We're going to start doing things a little bit differently. So you start out saying that you really don't care about your job, right? So this is just an instance. This is how things build. So you just start thinking, I hate this job, I hate this place, this is terrible. Little thought, just a little thought, nothing big, but it's sitting there and it's just kind of working its way in. If you're trying to lose weight, my friends did bring me goodies all the time. They would just let me follow my diet. I would lose the weight. That would be fine. And so then pretty soon, all these little things just keep coming around in your head and you just keep thinking them. And as you think them, they start to grow. So if you want to put this into like a metaphor, you can pair these little thoughts with waking up one morning and finding the cutest little baby tiger outside your door. So these are just little thoughts. They're not big, they're just little, they're kind of cuddly. We kind of like bouncing them around a little bit because it's nice to think it's all your fault, not me, it's your fault. Just nice little thoughts. They're not bad, but they're little and they're there. So you pick them up and you bring them in, just like this little tiger. By the way, Teresa did all the artwork here. So you bring him in, you hold him close, and it feels kind of good. For some reason, people like to think little negative thoughts, and it feels kind of good. We like that. I don't know why it is, but humans seem to think it's pretty cool. So we begin to feed him because he needs food. So we start to feed this little tiger. Just like we feed our thoughts, they start to grow. We start to add a little bit more. Maybe we're going to start telling our friends what our little thoughts are. They're not still in our head anymore. They're starting to get a little bit bigger. So is our tiger. We're starting to feed him a little bit more. He's getting bigger, and now he's starting to growl. Because if we don't feed him, he's letting us know he wants to eat. Same with our thoughts. They're getting bigger. We're starting to tell people about them. And they're starting to become more real. What began as I don't really like this job. Now you hate this job. This job is a terrible job. I'm gaining weight because I gotta get new friends. Look what they're doing. They took me to McDonald's 4 times this week. Well, they weren't with me, but still they mentioned it and I went. It's their fault. So you see, they're growing. And the more you let them go, the more you feed them, the bigger they get. The more real they get. And so pretty soon, just like the tiger, it gets so big that your thoughts start to actually eat you alive. They become who you are. You have created this by the way you're thinking. And by the way you've allowed it to grow. You've spin it on. So these are all things that you started nice and little cozy and soft and warm. So these are now the things we need to get the tiger under control. And we need to learn how to do things differently rather than let them build and build and build and build until it's way out of our hands and way out of control. Because it happens all the time in all kinds of situations. So, we're verbalizing them. We're now the victim. It's all you guys' fault out there. I'd never go to McDonald's if it wasn't for you guys. Quit doing that to me. So, that's how we go. That's how we learn. That's how it builds. You know, even if it's the same thing, is once you get, for me, religion was a big problem. But it's, my grandfather, I can't do that. My grandfather taught me that. He was the minister, you know? Hellfire, I'm gonna burn. I know it's because this is what we learned. I can't change because what will my family think? What will my grandma think? What will my aunt think? They're gonna, all thoughts, and you allow them to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. So now, we need to learn how to change that, okay? So I liked this a lot. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water's clear? So do you have the patience to work through all of these things that are going on right now to actually stop and start responding rather than reacting? Do you have the patience to start changing yourself and your thoughts a little bit at a time? Not all at once. You didn't get here all at once. You've been working to this point from the time you were born. Because when you were born pure. Everything you got right now has happened since that moment you took your first breath. So that's a lot for us. Some of us, it's a lot of undoing to come back through there. So first let's realize what reacting is. So reacting is a non-thinking, automatic action based on fear and insecurities. It's not rational, nor is it an appropriate action. Most of the time it makes others unhappy, and it makes things worse for us, and it usually makes the situation worse as well. So that's reaction. Whenever somebody says, and you react to a situation, you come back up. So that's what that is. Now we want to learn how to respond. Responding is an entirely different thing. Responding means you take a moment to pause. You look at the situation fully. You really pay attention. Again, listening. Huge skill most people do not have. No one has the patience to actually sit and listen to what someone else is saying, to kind of understand where they're coming from. So you look at the situation fully, and then you decide with a thought process the best course of action. It's usually based on your personal values, such as reason, compassion, and cooperation. Totally different thing than reacting. And again, it's do you have the patience to learn how to respond rather than react? For me, that took a while, especially once I realized I could get mad. I didn't realize I could get, and when you bottle that up for a lot of years, you can get really mad once it comes out. And it's not pretty for anybody, not even me, because I didn't like the person that I was at all. So, we're gonna learn how to be an observer and kind of work our way through. So and you don't have to do this tonight, but I do want you to try the exercise even in your journaling. So how you would do it for an observer, what you would do is imagine yourself on a stage. So think about an interaction that you've had recently with someone that didn't go very well or didn't feel very well. And what we would do is you're going to go on one side and you're going to put the person on the other side. Now you're on a stage. So you're just going to kind of walk. This is, I don't know, something that means you. Just yourself. You could maybe use a little stuffed dog like we do in Reiki. But you'll have something here for you, the other person here. Then you will physically walk into the center between these two. And I want you to just float above the stage and look down like you're looking at a play. And you let it start to unfold in front of you. Go back over what happened, but this time pay attention to what's going on. You're just observing. You've taken yourself completely is they're actually saying. Pay attention to their body language. Look at what's going on. Think about what maybe have happened earlier in the day before they ever got to you. Things that might have happened in their life. But put yourself basically in their shoes. Where their head might have been during this conversation. Then you go over to your side and you see how you reacted. Put yourself back into because you're trying to get an understanding of what actually just happened. So think, where was I? What was I thinking? What did I see? What did I not see? What did I miss? What may have gone on? So you're actually looking at it as two actors in a play. But you're up here with no emotional involvement with either one. You're just really looking at it objectively to understand what happened and work your way through. Because a lot of times we'll discover that their reaction to whatever's going had absolutely nothing even to do with us. I've talked later with other people, and before they ever got to me, all this long string of things that happened that day. I was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. It had nothing to do with me at all by that point in time. There's a lot of times I've been just sure somebody's furious with me, and then find out no, they just didn't call for a couple days because they just didn't call for a couple days. I
No
really didn't.
assuming, huh?
Yes, assuming is a terrible thing to do. Don't do that.
That little tiger grows up fast too.
Really? Oh, the assuming tiger gets really
Yes.
fast. Really fast once you get him out there.
It's a great visual.
Yeah, it made me
Yeah.
just, it's like, oh, and here he is, and he's just gonna grab you, but it all does, it's the same thing. You don't really know, those are all thoughts. They're thought processes that you allow to grow in your mind. And they get bigger and bigger and bigger, until pretty soon they become your own truth. How many times, I know several people that they've told a story so long, and I know it's not the truth, but they've told it so long, it is the truth to them. They don't even know anymore that it's not the truth, because it's now part of their life. And it's, this terrible thing really did happen. And it's like, yeah, pretty sure, no, it didn't. I was right there. But, that's how it happens, and that's how it works through. So we try to become an observer, to actually put yourself in the other person's shoes and see maybe a little bit where they're coming from. To step outside of yourself, because the world is bigger than just you and just what's going on. But again, you can only change you. So what you do is change how you respond to the outside world. And slowly then the outside world starts changing how it